Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this panel discussion titled Next Gen Cyber Resilience Turning Tech Disruption into Security Innovation. Moderated by Laura Buckwell, International Industry Event, EMCEE, and moderator. Our panelists are Dr. Marcus Fowler, CEO, Darktrace, Ultan Mulligan, Chief Services Officer, European Telecommunications Standards Institute, ETSI.
Please be seated. Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as we know, cyber threats are very much changing the global technology landscape fast, challenging critical industries and infrastructure, and with AI, automation, and quantum computing on the rise and very much shaking things up, leaders need to know how to stay ahead. So, how exactly are they responding? Well, I'm absolutely delighted to now be joined by our next guests who are going to be answering this very question. So thank you so much. So we've given you very, very brief introductions. We'd like to get to know you a little bit better first and foremost. So Marcus, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Darktrace?
Sure. Marcus Fowler. Darktrace is an artificial intelligence company. We've been around for 11 years, so even before AI was cool in terms of leveraging it for cybersecurity, but very much focused on how do we use that AI to learn about your environment, move the equation from focusing on the attacker to focusing and understanding your environment, both IT, OT, and email, in order to identify anomalous behaviors and the scariest of threats that we see from insiders, supply chain compromise, 0 days. So really moving that key indicator to a point of accelerated action rather than just response and reaction. And also, how can we help our security operations teams do more, get further, be faster in the current state of threats that we see today?
Wonderful to have you here. Ultan, over to you. Tell us a little bit more about the European Telecommunications Standards Institute.
Thank you, Laura. Well, ETSI is one of the 3 European standardization organizations, but we have global participation in our activities. You probably know us most by the bundle of standards in your pocket in the form of your mobile phone, because basically we were behind the GSM family of mobile standards, which have now gone through 3G, 4G, 5G, and we're about to start work on 6G mobile phones together with our international partners. In all of the technologies that we standardize, we aim to put security as security by design rather than try and address it afterwards as an afterthought. And of course, we do much more than simply mobile communications. So we have a specific focus on cybersecurity standards, on secure AI standards, and where we look also at quantum safe cryptography or post-quantum cryptography, depending on how you want to call it, and also standards for quantum key distribution. These have been worked on for a number of years and are now going to come to fruition, I think.
It's great to have you both here. So I want to start off with how both of you are seeing AI and cybersecurity very much changing cybersecurity strategies right now, and how exactly are technology leaders responding to all of this? What are you seeing?
Absolutely. I think first is what we're seeing AI on the offense, because I think that's also driving some of the AI utilization on the defense. I think we all know about kind of the weaponization of LLMs or ChatGPT with hyper spearfish, so really targeted spearfish emails, as well as AI creating malware. We will be seeing a kind of greater scale in terms of AI used for reconnaissance and lowering the some of the key indicators that we find for how we would best find those attackers, as well as being more and more unpredictable. So I think there's a lot to be concerned about on the AI front, just in terms of how it's being weaponized. I think the silver lining, or the good thing, the luck, is that I think defenders are embracing AI more quickly and leveraging it in a more meaningful way around defense. And you also have industries, companies, governments really trying to embrace it. I think it does, the maturity around that, kind of progression comes from what is the type of AI I'm using and why, right? It isn't just AI and immediately we all think of generative or large language models, and but they absolutely have their place. the mission of, well, what am I using for detection and response and why? What am I using to do supervised learning, to do threat intel? How am I thinking about generative and agentic for augmenting the SOC? So I think the complexity isn't as much should or shouldn't we be using AI on defense, because I think that has been solved, and we went, yes, we should. How and where are the best applications, the most mission-relevant applications of AI, and how can they be implemented in a very trustful and explanatory way so that they matter most to the mission?
What about you, Ultan? How do you think, or how are you seeing leaders responding to all of this?
On AI in particular, well, we're looking obviously at AI activities in our standardization, securing AI and AI as a threat and whatnot. When it comes to standardization for AI, ETSI in particular is looking at how do you apply AI to solve specific industry problems rather than trying to do general standards for AI, which is being done quite well in ISO IEC activities. And there, when it comes to how do you use AI, for example, in network management or in better spectrum sensing in our mobile phones, which will come probably in the next generation of our phones, there we need to really look at how do you secure AI. And it looks as much at securing the data, which is the lifeblood of AI, the data for modeling or the data which the AI model will work on when it is live in a system. So we're certainly looking at standards for securing AI, but then of course you've got to look at AI as a threat vector, which you mentioned as well, but AI also as an assistive technology to help you counter the threats that are available. So we're looking at all of these, but I think the primary focus for us will be securing AI as it is used in other parts of our technologies and systems that we standardize.
I really do think that industry focus is so critical when we're talking about AI. I think too often we worry or we think about just kind of a blanket approach of all AI is the same or the impact per industry. And I think having that focus and thinking about it by industry is really important because its application, its relevance, its risk will be different if you're talking about healthcare versus if you're talking about telecom. So I think that's really the more mature way of thinking about regulation or standards around artificial intelligence.
Definitely.
It also makes the whole concept of AI far more addressable and digestible because you really are focusing on it within a particular context. How do I use it? How can I use it to improve this particular activity rather than faced with this daunting pace of change of AI, which is very difficult to get to grips with. You've got to put it in a context and address it there.
Well, speaking of specific industries, I can only imagine the sort of everyday avalanche of sort of alerts that your security teams or these security teams that you work with, the amount of pressure that they're under. So with all these different new tools coming into play, then how are these new technologies really helping security teams, and what type of AI are you looking at the moment? Yeah, that's a fantastic insight. I mean, avalanche is a perfect way to put it. Alert fatigue, what's happening to our security teams. It isn't a problem that's solved with more bodies. Right? It isn't the human security operations center is overtaxed and augmenting, and think about the augmentation with AI. Like, how can we improve the investigative process? Darktrace has approached this from a cyber AI analyst, cyber AI investigator that was trained on our own analysts so that you can see what's the commodity work of the investigation? What are the first 20 to 30 steps, 20 to 30 minutes to 2 hours of work that security operations center is doing? How can I make sure that that's happening behind the scenes so that when that analyst logs in, they're seeing a fully investigated, fully triaged report that then they can allow for the art of the investigation, right? The human in the loop of the investigation, but you're bringing all the tools and the core information to the human at the beginning of that. So as we think about AI, replacing jobs, it really is not one. There aren't enough jobs there are too many jobs in cybersecurity for it to replace everyone. But I don't think it's not about replacing the human. It's about augmenting the human. It's about accelerating the human's ability to respond. And so while AI isn't going to replace humans, AI augmented human teams are absolutely going to replace those and outperform those that are just relying on humans to be able to see every alert and every investigation. We saw within one company, they were dealing with 200 plus alerts in a day, and now we moved them down to 4 investigations. So they're able to now, not only is everything being looked at behind the scenes,
But they are also know that when they choose to put their human resources towards a alert, it is, again, something that has already been prioritized, already been found of value, so you're maximizing the time of that individual. This really is a key area of our industry that I think AI has such a great, powerful role to play.
No, it really does, especially in your industry. I mean, that must help you so much. And it's almost borrowing an IQ, isn't it, from this type of AI? It's boosting your own IQ at the same time, isn't it? But I wanted to go back to sort of the legislation and the standardization infrastructure that's going on at the moment, because I know that in Europe there really is a significant push when it comes to boosting cyber resilience by the European Commission. So tell us a little bit more about this type of legislation that's coming into play.
Absolutely. I mean, we've heard today and yesterday many mentions of the European Union's NIS and NIS2 directives, and I guess it's more relevant for larger companies because that really affects them directly, but there's a profound change coming with the Cyber Resilience Act, which will come fully into force in December 2027. And that is a piece of product regulation which basically will apply to each and every connected product or digital product being put on the market for consumers in Europe from 2027. And I'm somewhat surprised that there isn't actually some more panic about it, because it really will have a profound impact. Well, what's it trying to do? Why are we doing this? Well, I mean, how many of you are absolutely certain that you have changed each and every administrator password on every single IoT device or router or whatever broadband device that you have at home? How many of you are absolutely certain that all of your devices are still getting software updates with security fixes 3-4 years after you've bought them? How many of you are absolutely certain that your broadband router is not part of some botnet being involved in some DDoS attack somewhere? And we're the knowledgeable ones. We're the ones who actually know that these problems exist, and I'm sure that many of you cannot answer yes to all of these questions that I asked. So what the Cyber Resilience Act basically fundamentally is trying to do is to try to address some of these issues. In a form of regulation, yes, some might have preferred a more market-driven labeling approach like is being tried in the US. We'll see which one is more effective. But at the moment, and this is what Europe has decided, to introduce what we call essential requirements for products that are placed on the market from 2027, but December 2027, but not just on the products themselves, but also on how they are developed. So we're actually, to some extent, regulating the software that's in those devices and products. And ETSI's role in this, we are tasked by the European Commission, along with other standards bodies in Europe, there's 2 others, to develop what we call harmonized standards. The Cyber Resilience Act lists the high-level essential requirements that products need to meet, but we need to translate those into, well, what does it mean for an operating system? What does it mean for a router? What does it mean for a switch? For different types of products, how can you demonstrate that you comply with the essential requirements? What do you really need to do and what do you not need to do? And at the moment, we're currently developing those standards. There's over 40 standards which we have to develop for all the product categories. We've just put, in fact, 2 days ago, the first of these out for public comment, and we really would encourage you to take a look. This applies to products imported into Europe, but of course, manufacturers don't wish to build 2 different versions of a product or have different versions of software for different locations. So it will have an impact on products which are used and sold outside of Europe, even if it doesn't have a direct regulatory impact. And of course, it applies to products imported, which means it applies to importers. It applies to manufacturers outside of Europe. If they wish to sell inside Europe, they will have to meet this regulation. So it's quite a profound change, and I'm surprised not enough people are talking about it.
So very, very quickly, because I know we're running out of time, what has the initial reaction been like, though, from what you've had?
Well, we are gathering industry support behind the standards, because the standards need to be written by industry, not by academics. They need to be written by people who know the pragmatic consequences of this or that requirement. So we're under a lot of pressure from the European Commission. I hope we will get plenty of feedback from the public comment. There are some organizations who are totally committed to this and understand, and there are many others who are still in a wait-and-see approach.
Yeah,
Well,
private partnership is so key in any time you're talking about standards. And I think you're also right, much like GDPR, right? They say what happens will trickle out and then have its kind of reverberations back and how they pivot and change. I think many organizations, companies don't react till it becomes real and they're like, oh, this has arrived, we actually need to. I mean, it's unfortunate because you're like, no, this really is coming. We're seeing this with the Department of Defense, their cybersecurity maturity model. It's been coming, it's becoming, it now is 52 days away. I know this because I care deeply about this, because we do a lot of business with the Department of Defense, but it is really driving a lot of that. No, this is real, be prepared or get prepared today for it.
And through an industry-driven standards process, which is what we have, industry actually has an opportunity to influence the technical details that they have to comply with. Yes, there's a regulation that is decided by the politicians, but they're also asking industry, tell us in detail how you expect to comply with this. That's where the standards come in.
Marcus, I wanted to shift our focus into bringing IT and operational technology. When they sort of come together, that can very much improve efficiency, but it also lays bare quite a lot of vulnerability. At the same time, there's more risk. So in sort of practical terms, how does this sort of connect in terms of IT and operational technology systems? How does it make critical systems more vulnerable? Maybe you can walk us through that step by step.
Absolutely, and I think we've heard in the cybersecurity industry and industry like IT/OT convergence, they are converged. Like, I think we can stop saying it's convergence. They are converged. These are two systems that are now talking more to each other, intertwined in terms of their risk. I think OT security teams either fused with or collaborating closely with or in the same SOC as your IT security is absolutely critical. That is the model that needs to be put forward. Are they looking at the same tool sets? Is it maybe using the same language? Are we seeing more and more IT/OT tools and tooling in terms of when I think about bringing things to the federal government, I talk about IT and OT together in the same conversation, and I don't say your IT problem is this and your OT problem is that. It doesn't take hard to look at any of these manufacturing companies or critical infrastructure companies. Going back even to Colonial Pipeline, I mean, that was an IT problem that trickled over into a massive OT impact. So these two things are converged, the risks are greater, the need for visibility and understanding of segmentation, the idea that OT is going to be secure simply because it's air-gapped, right, or simply because it's left separate. The number of times we've seen a company go, why is that IT, why is that talking to my OT system? That should never happen, right? These are complex environments. These are complex systems. There's very significant business operations and efficiencies that can be built into those, but understanding which ones are kind of converged within your environment and then maintaining a level of continuous monitoring around them. We often hear about that zero trust framework of never trust, always verify. For me, you have to be adding that behavioral zero trust framework of never trust, always verify, continuously monitor and understand to ensure that you're maintaining that segmentation, that level of security in both an IT and an OT environment.
So very quickly, just before I get to Ultan, what do you think we really need to do then to turn tech disruption into security innovation then? What would you say is the answer to that?
Well, the first, I think, biggest challenge that it's on the industry to do is ensure that you're showing how to trust this emerging technology, whatever it is, especially around AI. How have we build trust and explainability into it so that you're not checking it at the end of your day or using it as a last, ditch thing, but it's integrated and part of your critical workflow as a cybersecurity team. But as a security practitioner, you're not going to hand the keys over to anything. You're not going to just allow the AI to be a black box. So explainability, configuration, and all the things, that becomes, I think, the biggest obstacle to that utilization. I think also from a comfort level for CISOs and for security leaders is being able to have a frank conversation. Well, how did you leverage AI? Which application of AI are you using here, and why did you choose that? Why is that a mission benefit? How can I maximize the capabilities of this product? And what are the risks that you see as introducing into my system by doing that? So I think it's a lot of candor on the industry's side. I think it's also awareness awareness and information and willingness to think about your critical workflow and how AI can be augmenting it to ensure that you're maximizing efficiency, because the attackers don't care that you're inefficient. They love it, right? And they really want you to be relying on humans that are going to be overtaxed with alerts. I mean, alert fatigue is something they often take advantage of. So I think it is foolish to not be leveraging into, but also you need to be able to gauge and evaluate those technologies as they come in.
Well, Ultan, I wanted to go back to our conversation around standardization, what exactly this means for SMEs, because obviously this must mean quite a positive outlook for them, because you've got accessibility, yes, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're living in a period of very rapid change, especially when it comes to cybersecurity, and AI is only accelerating that. I mean, if you're an incumbent, a large industry, whatever, yes, it's frightening. If you're a small business, this is super exciting. And most of what we're talking about here is technology. And one thing the tech industry does really, really well is change. Rapid and revolutionary change. And I think also investors in the tech industry, they're used to that. So I don't have too much concerns about that respect. I think the problem arises when you have technology being adopted and used in other non-tech industries where they are not used to that pace of change, or they're not able to move as quickly. And in standardization, I think it offers a huge opportunity for small businesses where there is relevant standards activities, because you're sitting around a standards committee, they're all engineers, nobody knows how to read a balance sheet, nobody knows how small your company is. You're as good as your ideas that you bring. So this collaborative development can actually help a lot of small businesses grow, bring their ideas, address potential customers and partners in the standards committee, and use that almost as a channel to market. If I look at some of our quantum security related standardization activities in ETSI, and if I look at, in fact, the European market space for that, many of the leaders are very small companies. Maybe startups, or maybe grown beyond the startup size, but they're powering ahead, not the large incumbent or larger organizations that you would expect.
They're some of the most motivated, I think, to lean into those technologies because it's going to be a differentiator against the bigs that they're trying to compete into. So I think they are more willing and maybe more agile, because obviously their infrastructure or something tends to be smaller, but they see an advantage in moving into AI or in moving into emerging technology more quickly than an incumbent or a larger. And then they start to be able to chip away at, and that's why we've seen a number of companies at the small and medium business all of a sudden move into not so small and medium anymore, because they've been an AI first type of approach in some of their different business operations and security portfolios.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sadly, we have run out of time, but we cannot thank you enough for being with us here today, sharing your insights and thoughts, and that brilliant outlook as well. So thank you so much. Good luck with everything. And let's hear it for our panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's excellent to be here.